a couple of different things. First and foremost, it means that we're covering all the check boxes or the requirements that fall under backup recovery, disaster recovery, under the umbrella of the same solution. All right, so this is not a software solution like Backup Exec or Convolt that you install in a Windows operating system that lives on Dell hardware. A solution where you have to bring in another archiving piece or some extra hardware that complicates backup, but certainly also complicated recovery. This is a solution that extends from on-site backup into archiving into off-site disaster recovery. And again, you're doing everything with the same interface. The whole idea is to simplify this, make it easier. Less points of failure, a lot of moving parts that are built to work together. The other thing that vertically integrated backup appliance means to me is that the technology on the box is all designed to work together as well. So we build these appliances from the ground up in Columbia, South Carolina. They come prepared with all the capacity that a customer is going to need for the workload they're going to throw at it. All the processing power, all the memory. It's all designed to work together. It comes in a nice little stack. The operating system is single purpose. It's a CentOS Linux operating system, and of course we make the software that makes everything spin. Pretty straightforward. All right. No problem. So one of the goals that we have besides simplifying administration is also to lower total cost of ownership. And of course everybody likes that, right? Be a backup solution that's simpler and costs less money. At face value, lowering the total cost of ownership could be built on a couple of different things. The opportunity to collapse multiple support contracts down into a single maintenance contract, simplify that, lower that cost, but it also extends into our licensing model. We have no limits licensing. There's no client-side licensing. So it doesn't matter if initially you decide that you want to back up 10 systems, and then next month you decide, hey, I kind of like what's going on here, I'm going to add another 20 systems to it. That does not trigger a licensing event with our product. The only thing you have to do is keep an eye on the capacity, make sure you have enough room to protect what you need to protect, otherwise go crazy. And we cast a pretty wide net. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Linux, Unix, Windows, NAS devices, SAN devices, VMware, Hyper-V, Xen, SQL Server Exchange have native agents. For systems like Oracle and SharePoint, those things are coming. We have best practices documents at this point for those things. Okay, so if you have a lot of different systems to support, we'll pretty much cover everything. And again, that's one license. All right. You decide that you're going to move 5 servers, spin up a new ESX server. Again, does not trigger a licensing event with us. Doesn't matter. You bring in a new SQL server in house, no licensing event. You get to pay Microsoft, you don't have to pay us. It's very, very straightforward. It works out great for our small and medium customers. The architecture itself, again, has what I would describe as 3 basic components. All right. There's the on-site appliance, all right, the physical appliance that you actually rack up in your data center, in your server room, on-site. This has to be on-site at the customer site. Again, this will handle all of your on-site backup needs, as well as about 99.9% of your recovery needs. When we size up an appliance that's racked in, again, the storage closet of the data center, it's not only built to handle the capacity that you're going to throw at it, but it's also sized up for retention. Usually we size them up for 30 days worth of retention of 30 recovery points for each system that the appliance is protecting. If you have a customer that wants 45 days, 90 days, no problem, put them in a bigger appliance. All right. So it doesn't matter if you're recovering an Excel spreadsheet for an end user, or if you're bringing back, 5 systems that went down last night. You're going to spend most of your time on the on-site appliance. Right? And we take advantage of what we call adaptive deduplication to manage that storage and make it efficient. It consists of inline compression, byte level deduplication, and block level deduplication, and they all happen at different points in the process, depending. Right? I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about a physical appliance. That's my preference. I'm the type of IT administrator that likes to rack something up, know that I don't have to manage it. All right, it's not robbing resources from an OS that's also get another application installed on it. It's single purpose. It comes with all the CPU and memory that you're going to need, and you don't have to manage it. That's the beauty of it. That being said, I heard a lot of VMware hats being worn out there. We do have a virtual appliance that can be deployed on an ESX server, the free version of ESX as well. All right. Only difference between that and the physical appliance is you have to manage the underlying capacity as well as the underlying resources. All right. Some people don't want to do that. Some people feel very comfortable under the hood of an ESX server. And I've noticed that that number is growing exponentially by the month, it seems like. Right? So on-site backup with a virtual appliance or a physical appliance, when you have defined retention needs, things like monthly backups for a year, yearly backups for X amount of years, that's when we push into an archiving solution. So we can push backups off of the box onto an archiving target within the same interface. No more 2 new applications to learn, 2 more systems to manage. Literally, it's a drag and drop calendar. You tell us when to archive. We'll move the backups that we already have to an archiving target. Okay, now that archiving target can be hardware that we sell. It's disk-based, hot swap, rotational hardware. We call it an RxDA, a rotational archive, and that attaches directly to the appliance itself. All right, it's connected via a series of eSATA cables. If you have a monthly rotation system, no problem. You do your backups, pop them out, take them offsite, do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to use our hardware, that's fine with us. You can use a tape library as an archiving target. Again, attaches directly to the appliance. We just manage the scheduling. No additional software needed, just the tape library. If you decide that you want to rig up a cheap 30 terabyte NAS and use that as an archiving target, go crazy. You got to say and go crazy. It doesn't happen. The important thing to us is that the archiving process is acting as an extension of the backup schedule. And as, again, IT admins and professionals who are responsible for other things, that's probably the last thing you want to deal with on a daily basis. Backup and recovery is important, and at the same time, almost counterintuitively, something you never want to see again to begin with. All right, so that's archiving. And the third part of the component is what we call vaulting, or what most people call offsite replication. All right, and recent years, a lot of people have sort of twisted the archiving component of any backup solution they have in house to meet a disaster recovery requirement. It's kind of tweaking something to avoid the cost of replicating offsite. All right, in recent years, whether we're talking about virtualization or just the cost of hardware coming down, replication offsite is very feasible for just about every business out there. It's a hard component to argue against with cloud technologies now. I always like to think of IT admins as the type of guys who sit down, turn on the TV after work, look at the news, they see a flood, they see a snowstorm, they see a tornado, they see whatever, and they think in a binary state. Oh, I could handle that. Nope, I couldn't handle that. It's all check boxes, right? If my data center went down, I'm looking for a new job tomorrow, or my customer's looking for a new site or something like that. With off-site replication, again, under the same umbrella, it's cheap, and it's also very easy to configure. So for an off-site replication target, we have 2 different choices. You can use our data center, which is located in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a level 3 SAS 70 site. We'll basically carve out however much space you need and rent it to you, just like any other data center, right? Or if you have a co-location, you can just get another appliance. The appliances can have multiple personalities. Backup appliance, vault personality, okay? If you have 2 co-locations and you want to vault to each other, they can back up all the data at a given site and then vault to the opposite site. Okay, so again, your daily backups where most of your life is going to be, all your recoveries right here, take care of those archiving needs, and now you have the ability to replicate off-site. You come in the morning, you got 2 feet of water in your data center. It's not going to be the greatest week of your life probably, but at least you have a path to recover. That's the whole idea of the unified approach. Any questions about that? Make sense? Anybody not like paying Symantec every time they spin up a new machine, that type of thing? I don't know too many people who like shelling out cash for that. My biggest thing with the architecture, again, goes back to licensing. I don't like to be hamstrung by licensing restrictions, whether it's whether it's some software that I'm using from Microsoft or whether it's a backup solution that I've pieced together. Click next. Sizing's important to us, okay? For the physical appliance, the first thing that we'll do is try to fit you into an appliance that meets your needs. You can see here we have a couple of small desktops, or what I commonly refer to as sort of the branch office models. And then we have some rack mounts that protect anywhere from 1 terabyte all the way up to 20 terabytes.
It's 20 your max.
20 is the max. If you go beyond 20, we just scale it with multiple appliances. Probably I'd say every year, we're coming out with a new family of appliances. I see our capacity getting bigger and bigger. Obviously, with the new 3 terabyte drives, we're able to increase a little bit more in our 3 volts.
Are you able to mock up what deduplication would do in order to make sure I bought the right product?
When you say mock up, you mean test the product so that you can...
I don't know how much duplication I've got.
Exactly. That's always, whether we're talking about compression or deduplication, doesn't matter. So the way that, if our customers want to kick the tires and make sure that, or actually just sort of evaluate it beyond our sort of industry standard estimates, right? Hey, this is how much compression you're going to get, that's how much deduplication you're going to get. And we do take periodic change rates, year over year, growth rates into account so we can get a firm grip. The problem is that if I asked everybody in this room, hey, what's your weekly change rate on your data? And somebody didn't shrug their shoulders, I'd laugh, right? There's only one way to do it, and that's exactly what you're saying, which is, all right, why don't we just take incrementals for a week and see how big those things are comparative to the master data set. So, to circle back and answer your question, the virtual version of our product can do everything that the physical box can do, and that includes deduplication. That can be downloaded from our website. It's 1.3 gigabytes. It can be deployed via an OVF template in VMware, and you can test it. A 60-day trial.
So you just choose a target somewhere without your appliance.
Yep, ESX server, as long as you get on the space. And the demo downloads in 2 versions. Pick the tire version that can protect 100 gigabytes, a couple of systems maybe, just so you can get a feel for it. And then the real version that can be licensed, which deploys to 1.7 terabytes initially. So it takes up a little bit of space.
What part takes up 1.7 terabytes?
The actual, what we call V-recovery, the virtual appliance.
And you can use that for 60 days as well?
60 days, exactly. And we can license that. And for the consultants in here, if you ever decide to partner with us and you take a pre-sale certification, we'll actually give you a terabyte of the V-recovery piece to use as you will, obviously for promotion reasons.
The product includes the cloud recovery component?
The cloud recovery component you can test by downloading or deploying the same virtual appliance twice, and then you basically connect.
So provide my own cloud?
Exactly. Yeah, for testing anyways. We don't provide an evaluation for our data center. We provide space.
Okay.
And the big difference with the virtual appliance, since we're talking about it, is that obviously it's licensed capacity-wise, just like the physical appliance, but we size you up terabyte by terabyte. The biggest advantage of the virtual appliance is that if you outgrow your capacity, we'll just create a new license, throw another terabyte on there, and they're on your way. With the physical appliance, you either have to trade them in or just bring in another appliance to meet whatever your needs are. Very straightforward.
What's in your appliance?
What's that?
What's in your appliance?
What's in the appliance?
Mm-hmm.
In what terms?
Bunch of SATA drives.
Bunch of SATA drives, a CentOS Linux system, and then the only software running on it is the Unitrends software. It's pretty basic. It's,
Sure. Doesn't need to be much.
Hopefully not. That's the idea.
Do your higher end models have the SAS drives? Or is everything
not yet.
SATA?
Just SATA right now. This is close. This is the recovery archive that I talked about. That's a disk-based archiving system. Anybody who's using tape wants to get off tape, this is a good opportunity to move to a disk-based archiving system. Relative to the cost of the appliance, this recovery archive unit costs like $575. It's super cheap, and then the price of the disks, and I think Thailand's getting everything straightened out, so they should come out soon. They can hold up to 12 terabytes worth of raw storage, 25 terabytes worth of compressed data. So it's a good low price point to jump in and be like, all right, I'm tired of tape. I plan on keeping these tapes for 3 years now. The business is telling me we're going to keep you on the backups forever. And for your smaller businesses, we have the disk stock as well, which is $100 or something. View recovery piece. Again, the only thing we're concerned about here is the minimal resources. And again, it goes from the physical appliance, which requires nearly no management, to the virtual appliance, which requires a little bit. Okay, so everything I've talked to you about up till now has been sort of boring about architecture and sizing and things like that. As far as strategy goes, obviously we offer a variety of backups. It doesn't matter if we're talking about application backups or system backups. Master backups, differential backups, we support an incremental forever methodology. So if you have, 3 terabytes worth of data, but you got one system that's actually 1.5 terabytes and you never want to back that thing up again, you can move that system to an incremental forever, back up the master once, and then just do incrementals on a daily, weekly basis and never have to worry about it again. It's a great way of removing that 1 headache system, 2 headache systems within your environment or an environment that you're supporting. We also support SQL Server and Exchange application level backups. We'll talk about VMware and Hyper-V in just a second. But we also support bare metal backups as well. So bare metal, pretty much everybody kind of knows what that is now. It's a backup of the OS partition. Basically on a Windows machine, for example, it's the personality of the machine. Registry, networking, applications, data on the OS partition, as well as some security settings. So if a system stops responding, if an OS stops responding, we can actually bring that system back to life with the bare metal backup on the source hardware. So if you have a physical machine that goes down, hardware's still good, but the OS is tangled, restore the bare metal backup, you're up and running again in a recognizable state. You don't have to rebuild everything. That's the beauty of it. What we can also do is dissimilar bare metal restores. So if you have a Windows 2008 R2 machine that usually lives on Dell hardware, but now that Dell hardware has gone bye-bye and all you have is an older HP machine sitting around, you can restore that bare metal backup to that HP machine and bring it back to life. Get it back on the network.
Boot P?
What's that?
Are you doing that with Boot P? Boot on the network?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, we create as a, not Boot P, but when you install the agent on a target system, basically part of that process is if you want to protect it with bare metal backup, you basically just create an ISO. You boot up off of the ISO points back at the appliance and says, oh, I have 3 backups for you, which one do you want?
What if your ISO exceeds disk capacity?
If your ISO exceeds disk capacity, what do you mean?
Like you have you're backing up a drive to ISO that is 10 gigabytes, bigger than a DVD. And the only drive on the...
No. The boot disk is just a boot disk. There's no date on it.
It's your boot disk.
Yeah, it's our boot disk. Right?
Okay, goes back to the...
So if it's a physical machine, you can take those ISOs, throw them in a network, share, burn them, put them in safe, do whatever you want. Overwhelmingly, with virtualization now, all that's going away. There's nobody who can spin up a free version of ESX who wouldn't rather use that as a target than spinning up some old HP machine that may or may not have, its memory, rifled through over the past 6 months, right? And this is where we kind of get into what I would consider probably one of the most flexible things about the solution, and that's disaster recovery. So we're no longer dealing with a situation where you have a bunch of backups. Hey, this is great. I was able to squeeze all my backups into 6 hours every night. They're, every day they're successful for 6 months. I haven't had to deal with one headache. And then it comes time to actually have to restore them, and you're like, you know what? I never really got to that point about where these backups are going to go. Or even worse, you've built this nice, clean disaster recovery PDF that's never been tested because there's all these moving parts and points of failure, and it takes too much to test. So what we've done is say, hey, between your production system, a target ESX server will be that puzzle piece that acts as a storage facility for your backups, but we can also point to an ESX server real quick and restore. Right? This makes it very, very testable. I've probably lowballing it when I say half of the DR plans that I've seen in the last 8 to 10 years have not even been tested. Hey, it's a nice PDF. We have some nice pictures in there. It looks like it might even work if we have to put it into motion, but it doesn't get tested. And as anybody knows who's been through a critical restore scenario, those are not stress-free situations. Right? Now, what we've added to this on the virtualization side, in the next version of our firmware that's due out in the next 2 weeks, is Windows Instant Recovery and VMware Instant Recovery. So in addition to be able to complete in a bare metal recovery, or just basically recovering a guest OS to a different ESX server, you'll be able to boot the backup of a machine or machines on the appliance while it restores. So you'll be able to bring that up instantaneously, that system instantaneously on the network in its last backed up state. We're not talking about performance here. I'm not, you know, you got an application that supports 100 concurrent users. You know, it's not one of those situations where you flip a switch and everybody's happy and, you know, you all skip to lunch, right? That's not realistic. That's not what disaster recovery is about. What it is about is giving administrators access and key users access so that you can keep the data moving along more than anything else. That's a big piece of the puzzle for us. We're very excited about that. And again, we don't sell features. Okay, so any of our existing customers that are current on maintenance, when that new version of the firmware comes up, they'll update the firmware on their box and boom, they'll have instant recovery. Again, going to a simpler licensing model, right? We're not trying to nickel and dime you for everything.
When it boots up, is it Hyper-V or?
It's boots up. It's on the box. It's actually, I'm not sure if it's VHD or a VMware VMDK, but it's booting up on the appliance itself. So with VMware, you'll actually be restoring the backup to a target ESX server, and will become one node in the vMotion cluster. And then when it's done restoring, we'll actually gracefully fail over to the other node, and you're up and running. With Windows, it's a couple more steps. Basically, you'll start up the backup on the box, and then you'll go back, you'll restore the backup to whatever machine you want. It could be an ESX server, could be the same hardware, could be different hardware. Then you'll power down that machine and bring the other one back up on the network. Right? But either way, instant access. Very cool.
With the dissimilar restore, how do you manage the driver nightmare?
We do it by providing a series of industry standard drivers that comes bundled with the ISO. So when it comes to when it comes time to do a dissimilar restore, essentially you're checking a box and picking the drivers of the target system, and it ships with a series of Dell, HP, IBM, VMware, Microsoft, and Microsoft/Hyper-V drivers. If you're restoring to a box that our driver set doesn't encompass, essentially you just download them from the manufacturer website. We can map to a network drive. Right. And that's part of disaster recovery, right? Like if you have a series of machines that you have stacked up in your data center, and like those are going to be a target, you know, well, it's probably a good idea to get those downloaded up front. I mean, of course. And of course, we would all do that, right? None of us would wait till that last minute.
Is the instant recovery piece for VMware dependent upon what your VMware licensing is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if it's the free version. It will not support. I forget how they slice it up with vMotion. It has to be a vMotion license.
Okay.
But you can use any ESX server as a target for recovery. You just won't be able to bring it up immediately. All right.
That's cool.
And again, we support everything Windows, most Linux systems, a few Unix systems, etc. with the different.
Oh no.
Oh yes.
Oh, nice.
Nobody ever said that I was didn't bring something to drink.
That's the first presentation I've ever given where someone walked in with Maker's Mark.
That's a good man right there.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, that's TSX.
Yes.
I'll look forward to your presentation. All right, next slide. And again, you know, VMware, and you know, you can almost put VMware/Hyper-V now.
He does.
VMware is, you know, they're just unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's still the most disruptive technology I've seen, you know, in my 12 years in business. And we support VMware in an agentless methodology. Okay, they publish their data protection API, the BADP. That gives us the ability to do VMware backup agentlessly. It gives us the ability to do the Windows instant recovery and the VMware instant recovery. And we'll be supporting Hyper-V and Zen later in the year the same way. Right now on Zen, you will have to install the OS agent on every guest OS. Hyper-V in the next version, it's going to be supported the same way VMware is, so in a couple weeks. It's looking good. Next. Byte level adaptive deduplication, just so everybody understands the process and really understands the solution as a whole. This is not a data domain box. Data domains in the EMC, obviously, they're outstanding products. And I'll never say a bad word about them, but the fact of the matter is that a data domain or deduplication appliance is designed to shove as much data as you can onto a defined volume. That's not what we do. We're a backup appliance. We leverage deduplication at the appropriate times in the process to make efficient use of the storage on the appliance, but we also care about recovery. So anything that's backed up is initially stored in a compressed state. So we compress it in line before it's written to the appliance. And it stays in a compressed state until it's not the latest version of the backup anymore. In other words, compressed data restores a lot quicker. We want to make sure that last backup is compressed, not deduplicated. No rehydration costs. As soon as that backup is no longer the latest backup for that system, we tag it for deduplication, and we execute byte level deduplication across every backup on the appliance. Every system that an appliance is protecting gets deduplicated against each other.
How many bytes?
I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure where we're at the upper level of that. Now, when we vault off-site, when we replicate off-site, we leverage block level deduplication. Essentially, we're able to keep a signature of the vaulted backup on the local appliance, and then essentially just send the change blocks over the WAN, over the internet, whatever. Gets to the target machine. We synthetically rebuild the backup. Boom. You can sleep at night knowing, hey, if that worst case scenario happens, I have a path to recovery. It's a big thing.
Previous versions?
Not yet. Right now, the only vaulted copy that we keep out there is last night's backup. You can archive off of the vault right now,
Sure.
but in the Q3 release of our product, you'll have retention on the vault. So we'll be basically what we'll be doing is putting the deduplication process onto the vault, and you'll have a lot of storage. Probably as much storage as you'll have on the appliance itself, the backup appliance. So when you think about deduplication, I spend a lot of time trying to get people to think about what it is rather than just throwing around like a word. Oh, you know, I've gone from compression to deduplication instead of, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1. Now I'm getting 25 to 1, 51, whatever. You know, there is a rehydration cost associated with restoring data. Those little pieces are stored all over. It takes time to put them back together. We're a backup appliance. We're in the recovery business. And we need to really stress that. Okay. All right, so that's all I have. The last thing I will say is, and I'm by no means a SpiceWorks expert, but as sort of a tie-in to what you guys are doing and why you guys are here, there's a couple different times that we have. There is a Unitrends widget for the SpiceWorks interface. There is the ability to run capacity reports through the SpiceWorks interface so that we can size you appropriately. Believe it or not, a lot of people that we put into an appliance aren't really well versed on how much data they're actually managing. It's not the easiest thing in the world to get your arms around. So there's reports in there, or the utility in there that to help you pull back how much capacity you're actually going to be protecting so we can get you the right appliance. And then the appliance itself also has the ability to create SNMP traps, and they can be consumed by the SpiceWorks interface, so all the alerts that the box generates you can get in real time. And additionally, out of the box, each appliance also phones home via SNMP traps. So if there is an issue with the hardware, if the RAID configuration starts to degrade or anything like that, we know about it before you do. We usually give you a call, let you know what's going on. So that's it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having us. I appreciate it. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer while I'm wandering around here. You should probably talk to me before I have a couple of those makers. Thank you.
Thank you.